Welcome to another episode of How Men Agree. I'm Kay Rogers, your host. I am joined by co-host Aaron Adams.
Hello.
And Andrew Rogers.
Hello.
And our special guest for this episode is Nick, the big guy Ertmood.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. So, as we all have talked about multiple times, we talk about, how men grieve and the different stages that we go through and how we react to each one of them. And Nick is, unfortunately, as we all will do, he's gone through the loss of his father. And so we thought, Nick, if you could go ahead and kick us off and just kind of summarize, kind of how all that came about, the lead up to it, and then the planning and the afterwards and all that kind of stuff. That'd be great.
Well, it was all kind of sudden, as everyone will say, like when they actually get to that point. But my dad had at one point prostate cancer, and we thought that was going to be it. But he beat that. But he came back and got lung cancer after he survived the prostate cancer, and that metastasized while he had pneumonia, and it was pretty quick. It was into hospice, and then...
So give us an idea of the timeline. So he had prostate cancer, and so he got diagnosed with that.
That was like in August, or maybe July, 2011, I think.
Okay.
That sounds about right. And then he had prostate cancer, and he beat that in September. And then it was about a month later, everything else just hit at once.
So was your dad a smoker?
He was. He also worked in the factory at Caterpillar, and he swore up and down it wasn't the smoking, it was all the chemicals from Caterpillar, all the black iron dust and everything else in that place.
Well,
So
I'm sure none of that helped any of that issue.
it was a combination of all of it.
So take us through when you found out he had prostate cancer. So, help us understand when that happened or that diagnosis came in, and I'm assuming your mom called you guys or whoever called you and said, "Hey, Dad's got this going on."
Well,
what
actually we had just had Andrew, my son. He was born in 2010. He was just over a year old. We were picking him up from babysitting, and they told us then. It wasn't like we want to tell you anything important. It was just like, oh, while you're here, we want to talk about this. So it was they never liked calling us in for just an important talk at a time. They always wanted to go on like with everything as it would normally be, and then hit you with it at the end of it.
So, with them doing that, when you would hear that, right? What was your reaction? What was your gut instinct? Your reaction? Your mode of dealing?
At first, it was like I didn't know what to think. A lot of people in my family have had cancer before, and most of them beat it. At one point or another, so I was hopeful that he would be along there with it, but I was also afraid to be like my grandfather, where he didn't. So there was a lot of that kind of concern. Going back and forth with my parents with that, and just processing that whole idea that he might lose to cancer for a minute. But then when he beat it, it was just like we were all very, very relieved. But it was when it came back, it was like just a real sucker punch.
When you said processing, what did that look like? Or how did that feel when you said what did you do to process that?
At first, it was just very, very, I would think, like disconnected. We're looking at it like a problem that we had to solve instead of trying to, be there with somebody. It was like, well, what do we need to do? Looking at it from like almost like a place of detachment, where you're watching a show and you're trying to figure out how to...
Like kind of more practical.
Exactly.
Yeah. We talked last week about sudden versus expected loss. And so I'm wondering, were you more hopeful that he was going to recover? Or were you more preparing for what might happen?
I think I'd be in the latter, where we're preparing for what might happen and what we need to do for him, for things here, for my mom afterwards. All those things was what was going through my mind.
Did you think about anything about what you would do?
If it were me?
No, not if it were you. When you were talking about just your last point, you were thinking about how you deal with handling things with your mom and doing all those things. Did you think about how you were going to deal with it?
No, not in, that wasn't even like in the front of my mind. So, and then I was, I don't know, just preparing myself for the inevitability, I think, more than anything else than what I would need. Never once thought about that. So, but I thought like my kids growing up without a granddad at home, like I did. Like I had both my grandparents, which was awesome on both sides. But then they wouldn't have that same benefit. And that's one of the things that I thought of, and the things that my mom would need, because she had already retired and she didn't have a lot of benefits from her job, and she really depended on my dad's benefits, so things like that.
So thinking of those things, and let's frame those when you... What's that?
So you should get right up on that mic.
Am I still pretty... Is that better? Okay.
Great.
So frame those for me, Nick, when you're thinking about what your mom's going to need, what your kids are going to need. What things came to mind?
No, just the support that my mom would need. My grandmom, or grandmother, his mom, was still around, so the help that she would need with things. He was her only son, so she didn't have a lot of family there to help her do things. So I was just thinking, like, all the extra hats I would have to wear, the extra positions I would have to take care of.
And while you were thinking of those things, you never once even did you what you needed. Did that ever cross your mind?
Not once, not really.
Did anybody ever ask you that?
No. There was a lot of, like, after everything had been done, there was a lot of condolences and things like that, and saying you didn't have to be here today to do that, or you didn't need to come out bowling. I wouldn't be back for months, or things like that, and no one ever really offered anything as far as like anything I would need, or asked me if I needed anything. Just, are you doing okay?
So he beat prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And then, like 1 month after that, right?
Yeah. He got pneumonia, and then he had a cold, turned into pneumonia, as it does. And then he went in for a chest x-ray, and that's when they found that, and then they found the cancer at the same time. And they really couldn't treat the cancer because of the pneumonia. So it was, see if you can get rid of the pneumonia in time for us to do something about the cancer, but they couldn't get it done in time.
So, do you remember what it felt like when he, you're like, man, he beat prostate cancer. We're doing good. We're in the clear, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And then in a stupid short amount of time, next thing you know, they're saying, hey, he's got lung cancer.
Oh, yeah.
What? I mean, was that like a giant kick in the frickin' gonads, or what?
It totally was. Because it's like, there was relief. Everyone was like, okay, this is going to be back to normal. This is how it's going to be. And then you just got the rug ripped right out from underneath you. And I have to say that the worst part of the whole thing was just watching him slip away in hospice with, like, the morphine for the painkiller and things like that, and just watching him not be who he was anymore.
Kind of how, like, they're asleep. They're not really aware. They're kind of in that twilight stage.
Mm-hmm. And it was really shortly after that it was hard for me to come up with, like, when you go to everyone's funeral and they have the people giving eulogies, a lot of times people don't say anything themselves. They just depend on the minister or whoever's officiating to do all the talking. They don't ever know the person, so you hear a lot of like the same boxed copy stuff. And after, after my grandfather's funeral, which was about a year and a half before that, I decided that I'm going to make sure I say something myself at these things, because that wasn't my grandfather at all that was set up there. So I sat down with my dad and asked him what he wanted me to say. The things that he would like to have been remembered for in there, not just what I thought of. Because I only knew him for the last 30 years of his life. I had no idea who he was the first 30 years of his life. So I had to get that information from him.
Okay, so that's a really good point. So help me. So I have a similar situation. So help me understand a little bit. Let's take it back to that. So the first 30 years of his life, you never knew him. At what point did you get to know your dad?
It had to be I think. Okay, there.
I'm good. It's not the corona. Too soon.
Everyone's running away. No. No, my dad, he, like I said, he worked at Caterpillar, so he worked a lot of odd shifts. And I think I really started to get to know my dad more when I was old enough to stay up way, way late on Friday night when we would get home from second shift. And we'd stay up and watch Doctor Who or USA Up All Night with all those crappy, cheesy movies.
So he was in your life the whole time, just because he worked an off shift, second shift, whatever it was. I mean, in your impressionable years, he wasn't there, right? Because he was working or doing whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You really never got the chance to know him until you got a little bit older and you're able to stay up later. And then that's when you guys bonded.
Exactly. So it was in the mornings, it was gotta be quiet for Dad. Or if he was working third shift, come home, gotta be quiet for Dad. So it was just, we didn't know him until the weekend. And then he was so tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew all about that growing up too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't very good.
We weren't very quiet though.
What do you guys mean?
You know exactly what we mean.
You
dealt
worked
with it.
thirds and we weren't quiet. That's what we mean.
You were not. Do you guys remember the time I taped the note on the door of the bedroom that says, "If you wake me up, I will kill you"?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. There's dents in our wall from that.
Now I work thirds. Great.
Yeah. So kind of going back to your story, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew and Aaron, you guys can't actually jump in here at any time. Kind of leading the.
I think they're taking the chance to not have to talk as much with the guest here.
No, they're
I
waiting.
chimed in once
I
or
feel like
twice.
they're going to slay me somewhere here. I'm just waiting for that.
Oh, no.
No. So talking that through. And so it was a very short amount of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
He went through prostate cancer. Man, he beat it. Got lung cancer. How long was it from the diagnosis of lung cancer to when he actually passed?
8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, really quick.
Did you ask yourself, how can he be fighting one without knowing about the other?
It never showed up. It's just never showed up on any of the medical tests afterwards until he went in for a chest X-ray. Then it just exploded from there.
So did you find out about the lung cancer the same way as the prostate cancer, kind of nonchalant, or were you involved in the...
That one was a little different. That one was, you need to come on over and we have to talk to you,
Right.
sort of thing. Because I have to say that when they told us about the prostate cancer, they were very hopeful about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think they had a lot of good information and they caught it early, all that kind of stuff. But this one was a different story. It was it was a completely different tone from both my parents. It was a lot more somber.
Yeah, so at what point did he go in? You said he was in hospice?
Yeah, and it was a hospice at home. So
Okay.
he didn't have to go anywhere, thank goodness, but it put
Right.
an awful toll on my mom. And, we'd come over there and help as much as we could, but we had, a little kid. We were both working, so we couldn't be there as much as, we wanted to. I remember one time my mom was trying to help him on the toilet, and he came down the toilet wrong, broke it, and she called me in a frantic. It's like, Nick, the toilet's broken. Yeah, come over here and help me fix it. And then I had to put a whole new toilet on.
Did you even ask how he broke the toilet?
He fell on it.
So was your dad a big guy? A little
No,
guy?
he was 6 foot, maybe 6'1", 140 pounds, 160 pounds. He was a tiny guy at this point. So he
Jump
was a
onto the
tall. He was
toilet?
a string bean. So
He jump on the toilet? Holy cow!
yeah, he just like
You don't just fall into it. You body slam the
Yeah.
toilet
Oh,
at that point. Right?
yeah. At that point, he looked just emaciated.
Yeah.
So, but even before that, he was always a skinny guy. So he was like the Old West toothpick.
I'm going to take it back a little bit because I had this kind of moment in my life. Do you remember your aha moment with your dad?
As far as like when I figured out who he was, or
Yeah, when you actually, so growing up, right? Your dad worked all these off shifts. He couldn't be there, and he was working very hard to support his family, right? And as a kid, you don't think about that, right? You're thinking, Dad's just Dad. He's gone.
yeah,
We don't know why he's gone. I mean, we know why he's gone. He's working and all that kind of stuff, and he's tired when he gets home, and he's grumpy, and he's all these things. But at what age did you have that aha moment that said, you know what, I get it. I get what he's doing.
it's different at different ages because when you're preteen, like junior high, you think you know it. You figure it out. Stay up late, watch a Cubs game or something, and you figure it out. And then later you realize, well, that wasn't it. It was just like one layer of it. And I don't think you really pull back those layers for a long time. Because there's always an aspect that you're not mature enough to understand yet as you're growing up, that you just don't get it until you've gotten close to that same experience. And then you get it some more. I think I'm still figuring things out that I realize now looking back at it. So I don't think there's a pure aha moment for that sort of thing. It's just you get a little closer to understanding.
So it's a series.
It is. It is. You can't just have like that one eureka, and it's like I understand the whole psyche behind why my dad acts that way. It's like different things the entire time.
So, kind of talking through what we've been following through on. At what point? I guess I don't really know how to frame this question. So, we always talk about the stages of grief, right? We all know they're there. And none of them come in exactly the perfect order. It's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But because of the situation and the way things happen with your dad, was there a point that you were just angry that why did it happen this way? He beat this, and now all of a sudden he's got this going on, and then we had 2 months and he was gone.
I think when I was fixing the toilet, it was pretty.
But I mean, and beyond that,
I don't think I really felt that until it was like some of the responsibilities that he would have done that I had to step into, like when my grandma died. And normally that would have been my dad who would have taken care of all that, but I had to do all that instead, and I felt like that was unfair that I have to do this again for yet another loved one. This was my dad's parents. He should have been the one taking care of it. I felt angry that way that I was, had to be yet responsible again for more of that.
and how long was that after your dad had passed away that happened, and you kind of had that feeling?
That was about 3 or 4 years. About 4 years, I think.
So in between those times, what was your processing of that loss of your dad like?
I get really detached when I start doing that. I go really into like just problem solve management mode. As far as this is the practical thing to do, this is what we need to do next. I just kind of, I don't go robot. I just try not to think about it.
I have a question. So, do you think, excuse me, well, no, not even do you think, with your dad being in hospice care and kind of having that lead up to when he passed, did it give you the opportunity to have conversations with him that you don't think you would have had normally?
We did for about a couple weeks. A couple weeks into it, we had this kind of this is let's get real conversations about stuff. We only got that for a little while there. At the beginning of the hospice care, we really lost a lot of even the ability to talk like that.
Right.
Even about 4 weeks into it.
Do you think being able to have those conversations made losing him any easier?
I think it did. On one hand,
Right. It sucks either way.
it does.
Did it lessen the blow a little, do you think?
At that time, the things that you could think of that you wanted to talk about, you could.
Right.
There wasn't a manual you could go back to. It's if you ever come across this, go to chapter 2.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good to be able to have those conversations and to talk about those, that one overnight camping trip with just the two of us and relive some of those memories that just us shared.
Right.
So that was good.
So
It was cool.
So you got that connection a little bit later in life that you didn't think you'd ever have.
Well, we got to have that, like you'd like to say, that clarity between you. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's much better. I like that clarity. It's interesting to me. My biological father was never in my life, right? Until I was 37 years old. I think the first time I got an email from him. So I pondered that over the years. And Andrew and Aaron, you guys remember the few times he came, not the few times, he came up about once a year. We would do dinner with him or whatever. He came to Nicholas's funeral. I felt like I at least got to know a piece of me, right? And then I started enjoying him because I didn't know much about him.
Mm-hmm. You get to meet a new person.
Yeah, I got to meet him in person. No, he's a little bitty guy. I'm like, I don't know if I'm your son. You're tiny and I'm not. But he's 5'7". I'm 6 foot. Well, I'm 5'10" and a half, 5'11" now.
Yeah,
but back
He's an
then-
8 foot tall giant, folks.
Can't claim
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, he was still a tiny little guy, right? And so, I got to fill that void of not knowing, right? But then when he was dying, he messaged me he texted me and he said, "Hey, I need you to get here. I've got problems." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." And I booked my flights and I was there a day later. And he says, I know I haven't been the father you needed, but I'm asking you to, kind of take care of my end of life wishes. And I've always loved you and I wish I could have known you more. And so I thought to myself at that moment, I'm like, and going back, there's some backstory here, but I had the opportunity to meet him in 1991 and I opted not to. I was a little bit angry still, a little bit bitter. And I'm not sure why I was, but I was. And I got over that 20 years later. And so I said, well, you know what? He gave me a life. What happened in the past is in the past. I'm going to work hard to, not even work hard, but I'm just going to enjoy what I can have in the future. And then when he was dying, I made sure I did everything I could to honor his wishes, right? It wasn't about right or wrong at that point. It's about giving a guy that has a lot of regrets in his life. And believe me, my old man was a bit of a man-ho. He had 10 kids, right? And he wasn't always there for all of them, or most of them. But he really just wanted a little bit of dignity in his death. So I fought for that, right? So I get that kind of, that closing the gap thing. It's not even a gap, but it's that moment of wow, I got that little bit of one-on-one that I probably would have never had, right? So going back to your story, sorry I sidelined.
Oh, no, you're fine. You found some connection there and you wanted to explore that.
You got that time with your dad, and what brought this up to me was that when you guys talked about, hey, just me and him went camping. Mm-hmm. Did that happen a lot before?
It was more like just we had like those special like occasions where we only got to go on the overnight camping trip just us once. We didn't have the same opportunities that a lot of people had between working weird shifts, between being laid off or being on strike. We didn't have a lot of the same opportunities to do all those things. I mean, he took us hiking a lot, which was easy to do and it was fun to do. He hated the way that me and my brother would just, like make as much noise as possible in the woods. He just like, you're not going to say anything this way.
So is this why you guys go hiking as much as you do?
And it was probably one of the sparks. Like, it's one of those things that, you develop your personality from those things. So, that's definitely one of the inspirations.
You guys are all looking at me like I'm supposed to say something.
Oh, I thought you were getting ready to.
I mean,
No.
yeah, you are running this show basically.
Well, I'm waiting for you guys. Hey, chime in anytime, guys. Just saying.
No, but he's also the guy who taught me how to go fishing and took me out to Powerton and things like that. Go fishing in the early mornings. So that's where I get all that from.
So, you had Andrew when he was alive, right?
Yeah, he was just over a year when he passed. So Andrew was around he was born in 2010. My dad passed later in 2011.
How was he with Andrew? I mean, was he excited? Was he...
My dad, a story that my mom tells me is that when she told him she was pregnant with me, he was like, I'd rather have a dog.
That's the reason that I have another dog.
How'd that work out?
We got a dog, and I don't have a third kid, so there's that.
For now.
That's all right. When my wife told me she was pregnant with my daughter, I said, "Oh no."
She wasn't your wife then, and you were like 19.
I was 18.
Yeah, that's
Actually, no, you're right. I had just turned 19.
Yeah.
That's still an oh no moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I was like, I wasn't kidding how babies are made, guys. You and Andrew both. What the hell? I'm not going to segue into that again.
They learned it from watching you,
this.
Dad.
I feel like we've gone into this many times now.
Yeah, you guys clearly didn't listen to me when I said, this is how babies are made. I know. I've done it to your mom or stepmother.
All right.
A
Anyways.
lot.
Okay.
You just made this weird, Aaron.
I did not. You brought this up.
It's your haircut.
My haircut triggered this.
Yeah, it's freaking me out. Anyway, so, Nick. Clearly, what you're saying is your father was a dog lover.
Oh, he was. So no, he is. Is just, we had like I said, we didn't have the same opportunities for a lot of those, really amazing opportunities or like to do things together. But when we got the opportunity to, it was great.
So was your dad kind of an emotionally, I don't want to say shy, because I don't think that's the right word. Was he just not like an outwardly emotional guy? He was just, this is who I am, this is what I am, and I don't show that, that joy or that.
We saw when he was tired a lot. Tired and grumpy.
But when he was older, and so you got to go do those individual things with your dad that you got to do. Was your dad, I mean, was he vocal or open about he was really enjoying having that time with you, or just your dad was here, your dad was, you didn't really know, but you assumed or suspected he probably really enjoyed doing that?
He did. I mean, the stories that my mom would tell me about how my dad was before he was working at the factory, because she swears the factory just ate him up. Like, just drained him of all of the personality and person he was just eaten up by the factory. Where he used to be a lot more outgoing. He was more social, but just being at the factory just broke him down. And he just wasn't the same guy he was when they were together at first, or even before he started working there.
Was he still working when he got sick and was?
He retired. He had just retired, maybe 2 years.
So he never even really got a chance to enjoy not being that guy anymore.
Yeah. It was. My mom feels like more cheated than anybody else, as far as they were ready to do more things and getting ready to, reestablish their life before kids, because we were all moved out now and they were both retired, and then all of a sudden just gets taken away from her. She was more upset about that than I think we were in the end of it.
Do you think after he retired, did you see a change in him?
Yeah, he was trying to be more human, trying to be more connected. He was really making an effort for that.
He probably wasn't so tired.
Exactly. He really was trying to make an effort.
Well, was the issue with the factory the hours he was working, or just the
physical toll on him?
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing liners, he was doing bearings, and then when he was towards the end, he was doing he was in inspection, so it was just a lot of awkward positions, heavy stuff, and just beat him up.
That makes sense.
Unfortunately, I gotta go.
You had to roll.
I gotta roll.
I'm sorry, that's my fault.
No, you're good, man. Do you want to swap over here so you're?
No, I'm good here. Do you
good over
want to
there?
make any closing comments before you roll out? Aaron,
What was that?
I'm talking. Oh, you're number 3. I'm going to shut
I
that
know
power
that.
off when you go.
No, just it was nice meeting you, getting to talk with you. I'm sure I'll see you around sometime.
Exactly. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Love you, Aaron.
All right.
See ya.
Yeah, love you too. I'll see you guys. Now I gotta try to make a quiet exit.
Andrew, did you just flip your brother off?
I tried to.
He did, Aaron. He flipped you off.
I did.
I was trying to pound
So-
it on the way out, and he blew me off.
So you're a logical guy. I know that about you, and you always reason things out for and you're a lot like me. It's like,
I'm sure I got that from my dad too.
and I never had the pleasure of knowing your dad. I wish I would have, because knowing you is amazing. Do you feel like, and so the point of this podcast, as we review these events in our life, is to talk about, how do we feel, and what things do we do to, react. I will tell you, man, I reacted poorly to the loss of my life, and I reacted badly, period. I was a mess, and I was a mess for a very, very long time. I drank too much. I did just stupid things. I just was really, overall, a very bad person. And not to any one particular person or another. It wasn't even that what I was doing was impacting them. I just knew I was not living the best me. And so grief is it's
not homogenous. It doesn't.
Thank you.
It doesn't hit everyone the same way.
Yeah.
People don't have the same nerve endings that are exposed to it the same way for everything. You can't really measure one's grief against someone else's grief.
No, and there are people that do that. They turn that into a pissing contest. Thank you, Aaron. All right, I love you.
Love you.
Till
See you guys.
send Ashley and
Take
kiss
care.
my love. We'll see it. Yeah, they do that. They try to make it that line in the sands, like, hey, you lost this person. Well, I lost this. Well, I lost that, and this was harder than this, and this event happened. It's like, time out. Everybody's loss has an impact to who they are. And in my mind, And I've had a lot of people tell me, yeah, I lost, but you lost your kid. But that has nothing to do with your loss. What I went through does not frame your loss, right? And so, to your point, you cannot lose your empathy for what other people are going through. If you do, in my mind, you are devaluating or you are taking away something from them. And it's not okay to do that. You can't. It's wrong.
No, it isn't like, I got a new car, well, I got a newer car. It's you can't compare like your grief to my grief. You can't like just wait for your opportunity to talk by hearing someone else, like by trying to be there for someone else's grief. It isn't just filling in the blank for this is my responsibility for being a friend. It's just being a real person.
Well, I think it's an individual process, and either be supportive or be gone.
For sure.
There's no reason to make it any more difficult.
Did you ever have a moment during all that process, Nick, that you just like a WTF?
I think it was when we started going through things afterwards. My mom was letting us, pick things that we wanted to remember Dad by from all the stuff that was left behind, and going through like some parts of his life that were left, and trying to like find the things that reminded me of this part of it or that experience, or why does he even have this thing? What was this for? And getting those sort of things, and then just where did it all go? Where it's like you grew up and you think about it, it's like you only knew him for a part of your childhood because just so much time missed. So one of those things that I'm lucky enough that where I am with my career, I'm able to not have that same problem with my kids, where I think are sick of knowing me so well. But just that point where it's like the sum total that what we remember from him fits in these few boxes. It's just weird.
That's the water heater.
Okay.
It's the fan of the water heater. Yeah. Well, that's the joy of having your Beats laboratory in the basement of your house. And I don't rent a Morton building because I have 500 followers. So, and probably not even that many. And I have zero paying sponsorship. So we're working through that.
Oh, no worries.
We'll get there one
I just
day.
want to make sure it wasn't me like being too close to the microphone or something.
No, this is a labor of love. There's a reason I don't have $500 microphones and all that kind of stuff, right?
What? You lied to me. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. Oh, I do like it.
You said this was professional.
We are professional. We got stuff and things and, soundboards and stuff that connect in a computer, and then I have to do other things. That where in the process, Nick, did you have to be broken, Nick? Not, and I don't say broken in a bad way. Like, it's just like, I've got to grieve. I've got to cry. I've just got to say, dang, this is real. Was there a moment that just happened for you?
It didn't hit me like a ton of bricks or anything. Gosh. Because I remember the day it happened. I was sitting I was just going to lunch at work, and then my mom called and told me that he had passed, and then I just, told everyone at work, like, I gotta go. And then I was off I think I took that week off to help my mom with everything and do everything. And I think it was pretty early, I think, as far as when we had that moment. I think that was like when we were watching the mortuary people. Ow, thank you.
Ow.
I think it was when we were actually watching the mortuary people like move him out of the house, and it was all very surreal. I think that's when it hit, as far as like that, you know, big, holy crap moment.
Were you able to spend that time there with him during that? Because you said it was, what, 2 weeks from when you found out he had lung cancer and then he was gone?
No, it was 8 weeks.
Oh,
it was
8 weeks.
8
I'm
weeks.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it was the first few weeks where he was still with it before, like, because the hospice care. I mean, I know it's there to ease their suffering.
Right.
It's just the part of that is you lose that person in the process, and I think that's a lot of when we started saying goodbye to Dad was when he wasn't able to talk or have a conversation or do much anymore. It felt really macabre, almost. With, you know, he's there, we're talking to him, but he really can barely respond. He just really wants to have a cigarette, and that's like where he's at this moment. And he really doesn't care about anything else except having that cigarette, because he's just sitting there and really out of it. And it was just it's real hard to watch.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt
Oh,
you.
no, you're fine.
Was it the medications that they had him on to keep him comfortable, like you had mentioned before, that was making him out of it, or was it the progression of the?
I think it's
cancer?
mostly the drugs that
Right.
were there to make him more comfortable. I think that's really where that happens. It almost feels, and again, I know it's for their suffering.
Right.
I think there needs to be more done to educate the family around it as far as what's going on. Because I know that we weren't prepared for that. And we weren't ready for that with Andrea's grandma when she went through hospice or was doing that. We weren't ready for any of that as far as, or they weren't ready for it because they hadn't seen how that affects a person, how they aren't really there anymore. It was just really just a punch in the stomach watching that.
When all that was said and done, you did what you needed to do. I know, I gotta readjust
Oh,
here.
you're fine.
I'm actually looking at upgrading all these microphones because
I'm practically fidgeting more for fidgeting for fidgeting.
we're not. We're not. I'm not consistent, but we're getting better. Where was your lowest point? And at that point, what kind of drove you there?
It was before he actually passed. It was, I think, towards the end of the hospice care. Was when I was telling myself it's inevitable, it's gonna happen now. I had already started to make peace with the fact that he's going. That was, I think, what it was just watching that part of it. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. It stirs up everything. I think that's the most emotional swirl you can get. I mean, it's almost a relief after. I mean, when they actually get to pass on at that point.
Yeah, you kind of know that they're not in pain and suffering anymore, and
It's not me. I shut off.
Oh, yeah, that.
I don't know what that is.
Well, not just that, but also like the emotional toll on everyone else who's there to support.
Yep.
It's kind of like.
No, it's not too close to my headphones. I think I'm either getting too close to the soundboard or something because I'm really trying not to squeal this out. Again, 15 episodes later, I'm still struggling with the whole, electronics part of it. But anyway, go ahead.
And no worries. And it's like a relief for I felt relief for my mom, because again she was like the primary care person for the whole thing, and it was like this part's done, and now we get to go to the next part at least.
Right. No, you said you have a brother. Is that the only sibling that you
Yeah.
have?
So I've got one brother. His name's Toby. He's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
So he's super smart. Just doesn't apply himself as much as we'd hope he would. But he's got a road. He's doing a good roofing business. So sorry, gotta get closer.
No, take your microphone just towards me a little bit. Okay, you're good. I
Okay.
think that's where we're getting the feedback.
You think it's for me?
I think so.
Okay,
I think so.
we'll see. I can't tell.
I can't either.
Okay.
I'm not sure. No, do you feel like were you guys pretty open and like supportive with the grieving process, or if they're, I don't.
I
Really
know we handle it completely differently.
Yeah.
We were completely different. My brother and my dad connected on a different level than me and my dad.
Okay.
My brother connected with the hippie personality my dad had. He really liked that aspect of it, and they were all together in the music part of it. The whole stargazing, groovy. This is
Right.
the cool stuff. That was the pathway they were on. So, which is cool. I'm glad they had their own thing.
Yeah.
And we had our own thing. So I think that helped a lot. There was less competition for
Yeah.
things that way.
Did you ever feel like there's a point though in that it's like it's almost a little bit of a competition? I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean I know all siblings compete in their own ways, but like you said, your brother had a kind of a different vibe and connection with your dad. You're obviously an extremely intellectual guy, and you're very innovative and all those types of things. Was there a way you connected with your dad in that way?
Yeah, it was. Definitely more that way. And again, I got to stay up and watch, the movies with him and late night TV that my brother couldn't. And I think my brother felt more of that competition than I did. Because I was the older one. He felt that I got to do more and see more stuff. And then I think really the fact that my brother connected with him on the different way than I did was mainly his way of finding that route more than my dad finding that route to connect with them. Does that make sense? It was, I think, just the angle my brother came from.
How about you answer that, Andrew? Frame that.
I mean, because I'm the older one, I don't think I saw that competition as much.
Right. You weren't as worried about like maybe getting his attention as much. It wasn't something you were striving to do, or
Yeah.
maybe not intentionally. I'm not.
Maybe I wanted a little less attention.
Right.
Did you have that feeling between you and Nick?
I mean, we just fought constantly about everything.
See, and the thing is, I was always told, me and my brother fought all the time. But
Yep.
everyone always said that brothers fight and you're supposed to fight with your brother and all that stuff. And I think that if people didn't tell us that, we wouldn't have fought nearly as much. Because,
We probably still would have.
okay.
Oh, I think you guys would have for sure. Absolutely. But in the midst of your fighting, that was a you guys thing.
Yeah.
If anybody outside of you and Nicholas, or maybe I'm assuming Nick, it was you and your brother, tried to do that, then they had to deal with both of you on them. Because you guys may fight because that's what brothers do, but you ain't gonna jack my bro. That's my bro.
Yeah, I only get to pick on my brother.
Exactly. I mean, I remember a funny story about Andrew when we first moved down to West Street in Washington, and there was this kid that lived at the road, and Nick was a little guy, but he was, mouthy. Not sure. He probably got that from his mom's side.
He had no fear.
None. He'd fight anybody. He didn't care. If he was mad, we're going to fight, bro. Until you hit him, and he's like, oh, he poked me in the eye. Anyway, this kid kicked him in the balls. And Andrew was there when it happened. And Andrew chased this kid all the way up to his house because Andrew's will whip his ass.
Oh, I was so mad.
Yeah, you jack with my brother, I'm going to mess your stuff up, you know. And I'm assuming, Nick, you probably had the same relationship with your brother. It's like, listen, we fought all the time. But that was us.
Well, this is again a weird thing because my brother and I didn't go to the same school. I went after third grade. He went to Washington School in Peoria, and I stayed at Roosevelt. So I wasn't able to be there to, back my brother up for anything.
Where's Roosevelt?
Roosevelt is off of South Adams Street, down in West Peoria. It's the magnet school. It used to be Roosevelt Magnet. It used to be, a long time ago, high school that turned into a 2 through 8th grade elementary, somewhere around the mid 80s.
But you never felt like you guys had that connection where it was like, listen, we may fight, but if you jack with one of us, you're fighting both of us?
Only until my brother was in third grade. And then he went to a different school. And I wasn't able to help him out. And he got picked on a lot, unfortunately. But because we were, both those schools, the kids that go to those schools don't come from your neighborhood. They come from all over the city to those schools. So the kids that were picking on him were from nowhere near where we lived. There was no way for me to help him out. And it was pure hell for him for up until those kids either graduated from 8th grade or he graduated. And what was funny, or not funny, but a weird situation is those same kids that were used to pick on him, when they went to my high school and they started to pick on me, they realized I was not the same target my brother was.
Oops. My bad. Sorry, bro. Didn't know you were going to punch me in the face a lot, right? So it really, I mean, you went through a lot with your dad's passing. I mean, and you went through, oh my God, he's sick. Then it's like, oh wow, he's great. We're good. And then he's sick again. And then 2 months later, he's gone. So in 4 to 5 month period of time, you had the full roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, it was, and I'd have to say like the toughest parts were being told the news about the lung cancer, and then the hospice, and then going through the things afterwards. I think those are like the three main emotional points that you really start to think things and look at them from where you really are at that moment.
So with seeing him on the hospice, whenever you said he kind of started to really decline, like his mental state really started to decline, after the fact, did you struggle with memories, like, aside from that? Because I know whenever my brother passed, like, the events of that night kind of, for a long time, overtook some of the other, like, positive memories we had made. Did you ever struggle with anything like that, or was it...
Well, they hit you. Like, you see something that reminds you of it, it
Right.
hits you, but then you just remember that isn't like who they were, it's just who they ended, and that's how they ended. It isn't who they were. You just have to think about it and, move past. I don't want to say move past it, because that sounds like you're like ignoring it, but it's just, I use it as like the trigger that gets you to the next memory that you liked better, and then keep pulling them down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a good way to look at it. I mean, I don't feel like I had that maturity to look at it that way for a while, so that was probably more of my issue.
Well, and it is a weird thing. Like, you do start to forget what they look like a little bit.
Yeah.
But like some of those more powerful memories, they can pull that right in for you.
Yeah.
And then they help you pull those other memories in, and then they help fill in those blanks. So.
Yeah, I like that, using it to your advantage a little bit.
Yeah.
That may help you.
Yeah.
Because
Fortunately, you get the luxury of being there and watching everything transpire.
Yeah.
And you and Aaron both, kind of a crappy place to be.
But that strong memory is the one that you can remember their face in and everything else, and because it really is. I mean, it's haunting. that I mean, gosh, that part of it really is haunting. And then if you can use that to then fill in the blanks of like what they look like when you're doing those other things that were better memories. That's what I do anyway.
No, that's a good way to look at it. Like, I've never thought about it that way.
And so how long has he been gone now?
That was 2011, so 9 years now. Or 8 years? 8.5 years, something like that.
Do you find yourself at some moment or another, this or what, the time later, do you feel like, that's not what I mean. Does it just sneak up on you and kind of kick in the gut?
Like the weird moments that all of a sudden just like, where'd that come from?
Yes, exactly. Does that happen?
Yeah, it happens. I can't think of a for instance off the top of my head. Sometimes it'll be like when when Andrea, my wife, says something like, "You sound just like your dad," when I'm telling the kids no or something, and I'm like, "Oh, geez," and then I'll like have a memory of like him telling us no.
Dang it, I do sound like him. Crap, I don't even work off shifts. God, I get mine. I do, I get mine. There are times that, well, Nick, wasn't that long ago, I had a moment with you in the bar. I had a moment. There are feelings there that seem to carry with us for a long time, and I think we process through what we can, whether we like it or not, as other human beings, not just men, as women and whoever, we carry things, and sometimes those things that we carry, as we would like to think, as much as we control them, we don't. I think that's the hardest part. It's not the immediate loss. It's not. The immediate loss is something I think we accept pretty early on. I think it's the long term that we struggle with. At least for me. I don't want to speak for everybody. But I love when people say, you got to get over it at some point and move on. I really don't think getting over things and moving on is right or okay. I think accepting, right, and then learning how to constructively live with the loss and realizing you have a whole big bunch of life to still live, and you have to allow yourself to enjoy it.
Yeah, and to go along with that, when people say get over it, it frames it more like this is just a challenge you have to get over, like some mountain you have to climb over and put it behind you, and that's not really what it is. It's just one more thing that it's now changed your personality. It's now a part of you. You just have to figure out how it fits in with the other parts that you already have.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's living with it.
Yeah, it's not, well, it's living with it, but it's also not just living with it. It's
Managing.
Again, managing, I think that makes it just
Yeah, that's not the best.
it's allowing yourself to remember, as I go through life moving forward, as hard as the loss is, and that loss will never just go away, right? Mm-hmm. It's with me forever. I can't fill that gap. I can't fill that hole. I can't take it away. But what I have to learn how to do, and it's hard, and it's not easy, and there's no manual that's written that tells you how to do it, is it's okay to continue to love. It's okay to continue to make memories of my family and remember to laugh and smile, and things are okay.
Definitely. And it's just one more part of you now. It's
Yeah. I know, from my perspective, that the loss that I've gone through, and I've gone through several losses, not even just my son, right? I've lost grandparents, I lost parents, I lost a nephew. Not everything's framed. When I look at loss, it's not just framed about that one loss, right? It's all of them are individual, right? They're not all framed the same way, but what I look at them as saying, it's okay. And what I mean by that is, I'm allowed to smile. I'm allowed to have a great time. I'm allowed to enjoy my grandchildren and pick on Andrew's kids. I pick on them religiously. And I think if we don't remember that, we cheat ourselves out of an opportunity to continue to live. Now, that being said, are there going to be times that it's going to be hard? Well, yeah.
there's gonna be times you're gonna be angry about it still. I mean, it's gonna pop up. And there's gonna be times when you're gonna say, man, that would have been really great to tell, this story to my dad, because he would have loved that experience that I got to have that I don't get to tell him now. So,
Do you find yourself angry very often?
I don't think so. Anger for me is a lot of times, anger is like the default emotion you drop to, and you can't think of the other emotions that you're actually feeling. That's just the only way you can express it. Like usually it's something more sad or somber that you're trying to work through. You just get frustrated because you never learned how to express those feelings, and it just turns into anger. But I feel like I'm able to, and I learned those other emotions maybe a little bit, and I'm able to make it more productive, not as destructive as anger.
I think overall, kind of going through this podcast and listening to a lot of your comments and your how you frame things and your memories and all those kind of things about your dad, you've had a really, really positive, constructive way to kind of accept and manage and not move on, but kind of continue your life.
Most of my anger with my dad was during his time he was alive. So
I will be honest with you, and I would be surprised if Andrew or Aaron, and Aaron is not here right now, but I would not be surprised if they have anger with me now. I get it.
I don't.
But and I'm not listening. I'm not looking.
I'm telling you, I don't.
Yep.
I'm just throwing it out there.
But I bet they were really mad at me when I was really cranky when I worked third shift.
oh yeah.
I didn't understand.
Well, I certainly was tired. For 7 years, I was a cranky son of a gun,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I still built them the coolest chopper bicycle known to man.
You did.
We
did a lot of cool things.
Yeah. That bicycle was 11 feet long.
It had
Could you
money
even steer
signs
it?
welded onto it.
Oh, yeah. All those little the dollar
Yeah.
signs. I made the dollar sign. That was 1/4-inch stainless steel rod that I put in a vise, and I heated up with a torch until I got them to the bend, and then I welded a little straight piece, and then when I got done with that, I welded them to the wheels of the bicycle. I fabricated every single part of the bicycle. The only thing I didn't fabricate was the neck that the handlebars went through, and then the I guess the neck or whatever the pedals went through. Mm-hmm. I didn't fabricate that. I took that from a frame, and then I welded everything together. Everything. It took me like a month to weld that thing together. It was insane.
Meanwhile,
It was
they're like,
awesome.
"Where's my bike, Dad? Where's my bike, Dad?"
Well, what was super cool, it was funny because when I got it done, and I even spray painted it black, the dollar signs were all spray painted gold.
Yep.
Everything was cool.
The Ted DiBiase bike.
Oh yeah. When I brought it home, we had this old, God, what was that? It was like a Dodge minivan of some sort or another, right? I had strapped it on top of that mini upright, and when I was driving home, people were looking at it like, "What the hell is that?" It was like this super huge long bicycle thing, and it was great. And then you guys sold it at a garage sale.
Well, we had it for a long time. It was some of the stuff was starting to come off. I think at that point, it kind of lived its. That was after the lifespan. It wasn't like you spent a month building and then we just like, hey, garage sale.
2 days later, no. It sounds like you got some like abuse put into it. So you should feel okay.
Yeah, we weren't very careful.
I spent a lot of time with that. I fabricated that bike from scratch. I spent a lot of time, and if they knew how much time I spent on that at work and the amount of stainless steel that I took, because I used 3/4 inch
From the
stainless
dumpster,
steel.
of course.
Oh yeah, it was on the dumpster. It was 3/4 inch stainless steel, and it wasn't just that I welded it all together. I heated it up with the torch and I bent it around things and made all these angles and stuff. It was a really cool bike. Anyway.
We gotta find a picture of that.
Oh God, I don't know if we have one.
What?
I'm sure
you
have
made
one
this
somewhere.
amazing 11-foot bike and you didn't take a single picture.
It was cool. Dollars, remember that? I had the dollar signs and the wheels and the pedals and the frame, and they were everywhere. But anyway, so in closing, Nick,
I'm start to wrap. I gotta check.
yeah, you gotta take care of the babies. In closing, if you had in going through what you went through and kind of your time that you had but you didn't have, and then when you had it, things progressed quickly. In your mindset or in your advice, how would you ask people or give them some advice to say, hey, you know what, this is how you got to deal with this?
I don't know. It's tough to give advice on something like that because not everyone has the same experience with people. I mean, for me, it was I really wanted to make sure that I was able to say what he wanted to have said for him. I know not everyone gets that opportunity for his eulogy, because not everyone gets to do that. Man, as far as advice, that's a tough one.
That was kind of a hard question.
It is. I think that was like your toughest question all night, actually, was how to do that. I mean,
There's no perfect advice.
there isn't. I mean, for a long time, I grew up with ADD, and it's learning how to pass medication. It's learning how you can use ADD to your advantage instead of making it be a detriment, where you start using that for your own benefit. And I took those same skills and kind of put it towards what I could do with dealing with my dad and my grandparents when they passed and things like that. I just kind of put them all in the same lens where it's like, just because this happened doesn't mean that you can't do something constructive with it. You can't find a way to make it work for you a little. You're not a victim with it.
But that statement right there is pretty profound to me, because I really spent a lot of years being a victim. A lot of years, and sometimes, whether I want to or not, in moments, not as much as it used to be, but I still sometimes, I really let myself be a victim. But that's a really profound statement. I really like that, because that's a good point. That's a really good point. You let yourself be the victim. Grief is a son of a gun.
Oh yeah.
It's not easy. And life is not easy because it's not promised to be easy. But your statement there to let yourself be a victim, dang, that really is it. That's a good statement. That's a really good piece of advice.
I'm not saying you can't grieve. Far be it. I'm not saying you can't be emotional. You can't have outbursts. It's just
Don't be a victim.
you don't let it consume you. I mean, if you can. I mean, find some way.
Where was he 9 years ago, Andrew?
Yeah, right.
But that's a good point. And I thank you for that, Nick, because that's pretty profound. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, duh. Yeah, we knew that.
It's not always that obvious.
Do you know that when you're in it?
No, exactly. You don't. Do you know it when you're in it?
Yeah, it's recognizing, which is...
It takes a lot of self-awareness to see that, and you're not in that headspace a lot of times.
No, and when you're asking those kinds of things and you know, in those moments, like you said, you're not in the headspace. So, all right, well, Nick, that was a really good piece of advice. I like it. Actually, it's a very good place to end this and say, you know what, let's spend some time thinking about, you know, are we going to be a victim to our circumstance, to our grief? And, you know, guys, remember, as we all are supposed to, or have been trained not to, grief is grief, and grief is pain. So let's talk about it. Right? Peace.